Hi everyone, it's Kimber, the Study Abroad Specialist. I wanted to do a video on the Chevening Scholarship video. I just wanted to point this out as I was going through their website. As I mentioned before in that previous video, I actually love what they've done, and I'm not sponsored by them, but I love what they have done with their website in terms of everything is so clearly laid out. I really respect that about just how they have everything listed. And so it sort of takes away the mystifying of scholarships and how it works and all of that, which is something that still now in this day and age, a lot of organizations don't do well, whether because they think that they're being clever, but by not sharing everything with students, or they just don't have people who work for them that know how to write anything. Anyway, what I would say is that one of the things that I found really interesting and I want to share with you because I want you to go ahead and check it out is that they give a list of common mistakes that students make. And this is really important because we don't want you making those, because we want you to get that free money. If you know anything about me, it's not just about the money, but if you're going to be having the opportunity to go to the UK to study, not just to study for free, but just to go there and study, then I'm going to be cheering on from the loudest rafter, because you know that the UK is my jam. So I definitely want you to get the scholarship. So I want to run through some of the most common mistakes that people make with this particular scholarship. It could be relevant to others. We're just focusing on Chevening because these are the ones that they say that people make. And so I want you to know about these so that you don't go through and make it, and you can be eligible and then you can move forward to get that money to go to the UK. So number one, which is probably a little bit surprising, but not surprising. In the other video, I will link it above again if you have missed it, but I did spend some time talking about this, but it is very important to remember that you have to make sure that number one, you are eligible for the scholarship. So as I talked about in that video, there are some rules around this. And so you have to be, number one, a citizen of a Chevening territory or designated country, and there are an entire list of those. I listed some of those in the video and I talked about some of them, and as I mentioned, if you go to their website you will see that full list there. I did also mention that if you have dual citizenship with the UK, you cannot have it because, again, part of the goal of the scholarship, as it has been since 1983, is to encourage people outside who weren't born in the UK to come to the UK and study and build those leadership skills. So you definitely cannot have the dual citizenship, but you want to make sure that you are eligible. And there is an entire other criteria that I went through in that video to talk about eligibility. So you want to make sure that you've clarified that point and that you've gone through and made sure that you were eligible, but specifically with the point of coming from one of those countries that's on that list. If you don't come from one of those countries, you won't be eligible, and you don't want to spend time applying for something that you're not eligible for. So number two is, and this is a big one that I have heard several times from people in admissions and people who work behind the scenes and different things, not so much for Chevening, but for other entities. And it's just really important, is number one is you need to read the directions fully, but also you need to complete the application in full. So this is another area where a lot of students end up making their common mistake because there was a part that they missed, or I know a lot of people do this, they like skip ahead and then they're like, oh, I'll go back to this part, and then they forgot to go back and they didn't review all of it. And so you want to make sure that you are completing the application in full. And part of that starts out with just being able to actually read what they are asking for. You want to be very clear. I've talked about this in my Learn How to Study Abroad in 30 Days series. I will link that video, that whatever is being asked, you want to make sure that you understand fully what is being asked of you in the application, because every application for every scholarship, every school looks completely different. And so you want to be very clear about what they're asking you. And for the Chevening, they have said that that is one of the things that people mess up on, is they don't complete the application in full. So always make sure that you are completing the application in full before you move forward, and that you've made sure that you have filled out everything and everything is correct and it's exactly how they want it. I have not gone into the application portal because I'm not eligible to apply because I am a US citizen, but I can't imagine that if they are this detailed on their website that in the application portal, they would not be just as detailed. It doesn't make sense. They would not be. So make sure that you are following along with everything they are asking for in the application. The next part that people make mistakes on is with the work experience and proof of the work experience. You know that in the other video, I talked about the fact that you need 2,800 hours, or as I like to just say, make it simple, 2 years. I don't like to think about my life in hours like that. That's a bit scary. 2,800 hours of working, but 2 years minimum of work experience. This is something that you have to absolutely have. It is a requirement for the eligibility for the Chevening scholarship. It's something that every student has to have in order to apply for this. And so if you are not yet at that stage, you should not be applying for the scholarship. This is a core element of what they require to be eligible. And I talked about that in the video before, how I was saying how part of the benefit of this is that having gone through and being able to have worked for a minimum of 2 years, it's going to give you a different set of skills to go from undergrad to graduate level. There's certain things that you need. And even someone like me, who I just kind of came, and even though I had different internships and different work experience that was kind of just like very temporary, I went through all the way through school. And that's a lot different than some of my classmates who they had been out for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and then they were coming back. They definitely had a different set of skills. And so I was definitely trying to learn from them and trying to get sort of those core skills, but that's a bit of more of a catch-up game. And the Chevening team, they want you to be able to have those things before you go into it so that you can be as successful as possible. So definitely just keeping in mind that you need to have those work requirement experience on your resume and provable that you've had at least 2,800 hours of work experience prior to beginning your scholarship. Now, this next one, I know that, I mean, I'm very blessed that this is not something that I struggle with, but I work with students all the time that this is a pain point for them. And this is something that, whether you are applying to Chevening or you are just filling out your application for school or whatever, is essays. Essays is a very contentious point for a lot of people. I find that there are usually two groups of people, well, maybe three groups. I find that there are people who are very comfortable with multiple choice, and then essay they don't like, and maybe short answer they're okay with. There are people who are short answer people, multiple choice, they can take it or leave it. Essay maybe. And then there are people like me who love the essay, multiple choice gets on my nerves, and short answer, I just feel like, why not turn that into an essay? So in terms of the essay questions, part of the issue that Chevening has said that people have is making the essay questions too short. And I can understand this because I know a lot of the students who are eligible to apply, English is not your first language. And so a lot of times what you were sort of writing about and what you're trying to say, you may not have all the words to say it. And so I have a lot of understanding for that. And even for students who maybe you already know English as a second language, but you don't necessarily know like how to formulate the right ways to be able to make out the essays that they're asking for, it's going to be really important to get comfortable with word count. And so there are a few ways to do this. Number one is just to be able to practice. So once you sort of understand what the different essays are they want you to write, I believe there are multiple ones. From what I've seen, there could be 3 to 4. You want to go ahead and, I mean, people tend to swear by this. I'm not someone who, I never write practice essays, but essays are not a problem for me. If you are someone who struggles with essays, then go ahead and write out your essay. And if you are someone who maybe English is not your first language, go ahead and pull out a thesaurus, or you can even work with a tutor on this to figure out a way to build out an essay that is going to reach the word limit. Because that is something that, believe it or not, people a lot of times would say, well, why does it matter if I reach the word limit? Now, there's a difference between not reaching the word limit almost and definitely missing the word limit. Let's say the word limit is 1,000 words and you're at, I don't know, 950 words. Typically, there's not going to be as much weighted on that. They could still take off some points because, again, you didn't reach the word limit. But if the word limit is 1,000 words and you only have 650, that's an issue. And so a lot of times it's not so much that there's anything wrong with your essay, but that you need to be able to know how to formulate what you're trying to say a bit more and flush it out more to get to that word count. And you don't want to get into a place where you were just adding filler words. We know that sort of the filler words, the word salad, that's not good either, because you just start talking in circles. But you need to find that happy balance between knowing how to structure an essay that is going to make sense and be able to flow really well to get across what you're trying to say within the word count, but also being able to effectively reach that word count without feeling like, okay, like I can just say this and then I'll kind of move to this next point. And I know that something that students really struggle with is they feel like, well, if I start to really kind of flesh out my ideas, I'm going to have too much. It's almost better to have too much and be able to edit than to not have enough, if you know what I'm saying. And clearly, this is an issue if Chevening is saying that this is a common mistake that students do not reach the word limit. So I definitely want you to be able to reach that. And so definitely focus heavily on outlining your essays. If this is a problem for you, outlining your essays and being able to think about what you can include. And that could be where you have specific headers, where it's like, you know, that and even if, again, if you are going through and researching things, you likely will have to bring in some research and some outside sources, some outside quotes. There are ways to do that to be able to reach your word limit, but you want to be able to focus on that. And same thing on the other side. And I am guilty of this, absolutely. You don't want to go too far over the word limit either. Now, again, within the particular system, they may have it where it's already capped for you. But if they have it where you can just submit it on a PDF, you don't want to go too far over. So again, if they're asking for 1,000 words, if you go over 1,200 words, sometimes that's not going to be too bad. But if you're like me and you have a tendency and you could be at 5,000 words, or, you know, like, then you might be in trouble. So you just want to make sure that you are being respectful to what they're asking for. Again, reading the directions. If you go too far over, you go too far under, one of the things that's going to be assumed about you is that you can't follow directions. And that is not something that is going to weigh heavily in your favor for any type of scholarship or any opportunity. So make sure that you are giving your best effort on the essays. I know that it can be very stressful for a lot of students, but there is a way to be able to reach that mark so that you can make an impression with those essays. So definitely make sure that you understand the word count and that you stick to it as close as possible. Last but not least, one of the common mistakes that they mentioned towards the end was plagiarism. And I wouldn't think that I would need to talk to college-based students who are going into grad school about plagiarism, but one of the things that is important to remember as well, particularly as you sort of elevate into this next step in your career, is that it's not so much about plagiarism of, oh, like, you know, well, I copied someone's paper word for word. That is not necessarily the style of plagiarism that they're talking about here. It's mainly about the fact, and I have a lot of sympathy for this because this is something that I still struggle with, as great of a writer and as content person I am, is with quoting, direct quoting and citations in papers. That has never been my strong suit. A bibliography is not something that I ever like to do, but it's something that we have to be able to do as professionals, as educators, and as people who are in education. But when you are doing and citing your sources as you're going through for your Chevening application, you want to make sure that as you are doing that, any type of source that you're going to be pulling in for your essays, that you are accurately citing those sources so that it doesn't appear as plagiarism. Because of course, like other programs out there, they run them through the platform to see. And one of the things that they catch students on is not, again, it's not like they found two students who had the same essay. It's not that type of plagiarism. It's more about plagiarizing almost removed. It's not something that you meant to do. But if you're not properly citing it, you're not properly citing the sources, it's going to appear as plagiarism. So make sure that you get really comfortable with that. There are lots of resources out there. I can link some below of how you properly source things, how you properly go through and do that, just so that you can get a little bit more comfortable. You can make sure that you do not come up as having plagiarized because you've worked so hard on these essays for your scholarship. You don't want to appear to be plagiarizing. And again, this is one of the things that they want to highlight because this is what they see. And they specifically said that it has to do with sources. So that's really encouraging that at least there aren't a lot of students out there plagiarizing each other or previous students who have gotten Chevening. What they're doing is they're just not properly sourcing things. And that's something else that they are looking for, because again, at this particular level, even if it is hard for you and it's a struggle like it is for me, when you get to this level of the graduate level, there's certain things you have to be able to elevate, and being able to properly source and citate is going to be one of them. So definitely get comfortable with that and make sure that you don't make those mistakes within your application or within your essay for the Chevening Scholarship. So I hope this video was helpful for you as a follow-up. Again, I'm so excited for all the students who are going to be applying for Chevening both now and in the future. And I was so happy to be able to share these common mistakes with you. There are a few more that they listed that I didn't include just for time's sake. So I'm going to just link the section below on their website where you can find it and read through it. Again, it's really helpful to just kind of know this. And I really admire the fact that they were really out there and saying what people do so that you don't have to make these mistakes and you don't have to be in the dark about what it actually takes to get a great scholarship like this. Please go ahead and like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. I release videos every single Friday and sometimes on Wednesdays and Thursdays as well. Please also share this video with someone that you know who may be interested in applying for the Chevening Scholarship. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.